The next big installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise is a little more experimental than you would think it would be after Ubisoft's recent addiction to making huge, endless RPG games. It's a game called Assassin's Creed Hexe, or Hexe, and it takes place during the 16th century Holy Roman Empire during the Witch Hunt. Now, this was a game that was originally teased or announced or leaked or whatever it was last year, and it was supposed to be releasing in 2026. However, because of AC Shadow's kind of huge delay into 2025, it's now set to release in 2027 with a similar post-launch plan to Assassin's Creed Shadows taking place over the course of 2 years. Now, Hexe is understood to be a more linear experience compared to its predecessors, with some elements of open world exploration, kind of similar to the early Assassin's Creed games. In this game, you're supposed to be in the shoes of a single female protagonist currently named Elsa. I think that still hasn't changed. Her name is still Elsa and has some supernatural abilities. Now, because it's Assassin's Creed and this is being made by Ubisoft Montreal, they probably aren't going to actually give her supernatural abilities, but probably just say that she has a piece of Eden that allows her to do certain things. That's kind of like the easy way out in Assassin's Creed that kind of allows you to do supernatural things. And even though I'm not that big of a fan of it, I'll explain why it could be a cool thing to do. Apparently there is some footage of the game circling around, and it's been circling around for the last year, and in it seems like Elsa is being chased by 16th century German soldiers, and she uses a spell to possess a nearby cat. The player then controls the cat and uses it to distract the soldiers by knocking over a glass bottle, which smashes on the ground and diverts the soldiers' attention. The gameplay provided kind of depicts a dark and gloomy setting in cobble streets of a large city. Some other details about this game is that it does seem to have a fear system like Jack the Ripper's DLC in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which was a very interesting mechanic that Ubisoft didn't do much with after the DLC, and that I'd like to see explore in a game like this. Now, this game is scheduled to release after Shadows support ends, and Shadows, as I mentioned, is scheduled to have 2 years of DLC support. So I'll share kind of why I think this could be an interesting game, but also why I'm a little bit suspicious about this 1 year or 2 years of support that it's rumored to have. I think currently it's rumored to have 1 year of support, before it was 2. Either way, if it's a linear game, it's difficult to believe that there isn't going to be like a catch-22 to this pitch for why it would have a whole year of support, when linear games tend to not be that lucrative in terms of potential microtransactions Ubisoft has become very entangled with. Now, why do I think this game could be interesting? Number one is because it's being made by Ubisoft Montreal and Darby McDevitt is writing for it. Now, if you're not a hardcore Assassin's Creed fan, Ubisoft Montreal has made the more like, not respectable, but I guess darker, more serious, old school Assassin's Creed games. It's responsible for my favorite Assassin's Creed games, and Darby McDevitt is one of the best narrative directors and writers in the gaming industry as a whole. I think that every single thing that he's written, including Valhalla, has slapped. I think Valhalla suffered from a lot of things, but the writing wasn't necessarily one of them, at least not the quality, maybe the quantity. So it's interesting for them to be taking on such a strange and interesting project. It's strange and interesting for 3 reasons. One is because it's linear, or it seems to be more linear than these open world RPGs. I like that they're not trying to basically be another Quebec and kind of try and do what they do. They're probably trying to create a more handcrafted and loved experience that I am completely here for, and I think a more linear Assassin's Creed is something that a lot of us would be very interested in, especially with the fatigue that's going to set in with how many Assassin's Creed games are being released. And another reason why it's interesting is because it's set in a very, I guess, intriguing time period. They're not going for like the next most popular setting like ancient Rome or some other setting that's been asked for a million years. They're selecting one that's probably a little bit less popular, that's still very interesting, that still has a lot of people who are fans of it, or I guess not fans, but kind of like have studied it, and I really want to see what they do with it. It already seems like they're kind of like leveraging that setting for interesting gameplay mechanics that, even though don't fit with the natural Assassin's Creed lore or theme that I usually kind of promote, which is the grounded realism, the parkour, the stealth, the combat, it does seem to be taking inspiration from another franchise that I love, which is Dishonored. Dishonored is one of the greatest stealth games of all time, and one of my favorite games of all time. And in that game, you have certain stealth abilities that go into the supernatural, like possession and using that to distract guards in a more linear level. So if Assassin's Creed Hexe takes any sort of inspiration from Dishonored and creates an Assassin's Creed game that's a blend between AC and Dishonored, you can fucking count me in. Like, I am sat for that. So again, even though I do think that they're just going to do this annoying cop-out thing of saying, oh, you know, you have supernatural abilities because you have a piece of Eden, you're considered a witch because you've done witchcraft with a piece of Eden, like, that's kind of an obvious narrative tool that they're going to use. I am interested more into how they're going to adapt the gameplay to the world and the style that they're adopting. If you have Dishonored-esque abilities, if this is a stealth-first game that allows you to do more interesting things than simply just walk around and stab guards, I'm really interested in that, because again, Ubisoft has recently delivered on the stealth fantasy, and they seem to understand very well how to create engaging stealth. Assassin's Creed Mirage has phenomenal stealth and has some kind of supernatural ability with the assassin teleport skill, and Assassin's Creed Shadows has also phenomenal stealth that leverages the light mechanic and the sound mechanic to make some really interesting stealth scenarios and encounters that are honestly very, very, very tense. So given that they've not only been able to create 2 games in succession that have very competent stealth, but that have very different core mechanics, or kind of like, I guess, special abilities that define that stealth system and be able to do it properly, so Mirage with the supernatural ability and Shadows with the light and shadows thing, I'm very excited to see how they do this and create another stealth experience that has more of like this magical element to it while still being engaging. Again, I think that a blend of Assassin's Creed and Dishonored within the 16th century setting just sounds incredibly appealing. And even though there is a lot of ways that this could go wrong, if it has a 1-year DLC support, it cannot be completely linear, because there has to be some sort of way in which you can provide more than just paid DLC, but instead paid microtransactions. Why? Because imagine you create a DLC and you sell it for $30. The amount of money that it takes to create a whole DLC in terms of voice acting, cutscenes, writing, development, a new mechanic, new weapons, everything is much more expensive than simply creating like a special magical outfit and selling that for $15. Because if you buy 2 of those, you've bought a DLC worth of expansion for just 2 fucking outfits, which you can probably make in a day or 2 days. So in terms of cost efficiency, something that they're probably going to need, because again, they're not leveraging a highly demanded setting like Assassin's Creed Shadows has and like Ubisoft Quebec likes to do. Because if you look at Quebec, the last 2 games they've made are in ancient Greece and in feudal Japan. Like, they're not making it difficult for themselves to create demand and make these big games that a bunch of people are just going to want to play for the setting. They've gone for a very experimental and unique angle to a very interesting but niche time in history, which for a fan like me is exactly what I would want at this stage in the life cycle of Assassin's Creed. There's been so many games out, and it doesn't seem like they've made that big of an effort to become experimental or creative with the franchise. And this seems like the first time that they're actually going to. And if you have to sacrifice a little bit of like the lore consistency or the storytelling consistency or integrity to create these excuses as to why you can play out these new ways of being an assassin, like possessing a fucking animal, I'm all for it. I'm all for experimentation. I'm all for creatively led changes to the lore, or at least kind of ways around the established lore instead of creatively bankrupt ways around the lore. And I do think that Assassin's Creed Hexe could be very refreshing for Assassin's Creed fans. Honestly, looking at like the entire slate of releases for Assassin's Creed, I don't think that Hexe is going to turn the ship around or make Ubisoft rethink their strategy. I do think that Ubisoft's main strategy moving forward are these big, endless RPG Assassin's Creeds, but I do think that it could give something refreshing to fans, and it could validate Ubisoft's strategy, which is a strategy that I really do hope gets validated and is successful. That strategy is the one of kind of catering to different audiences and different segments of their fan base with different games, instead of trying to capture everyone with one game. So Assassin's Creed Shadows is for the big RPG fans, and they're going to have 2 years and probably more time to kind of indulge in that. And then for fans that want something a little bit more different, a little bit more curated, maybe shorter but more engaging, more stealth-based, darker, grittier, more story-based, you have something like Assassin's Creed Hexe. So that does sound like a better idea than just trying to please everyone, because again, you end up pleasing no one. And I hope that it does succeed. I'm excited to see more trailers and more footage of this as time goes along. This does seem to be coming after Invictus, the Black Flag remake, and Assassin's Creed Jade. Those seem to be the first 3 Assassin's Creed games coming out. So I do expect 2027, probably seeing some footage, June of 2026 or maybe December of 2026. And yeah, it's a game that has my faith, has my belief, and out of the first 4 games that I've covered in this kind of series where I talk about every Assassin's Creed game that's been released or that's been leaked or announced, it's the one that I'm definitely most excited for, probably more than the Black Flag remake, just because I think the remake has so many ways of going wrong, and something new and experimental that's focused on this gritty reality excites me a lot. But let me know what you think about this, if you're excited for Assassin's Creed Hexe, and if you do want to see that video where I talk about the Black Flag remake, how I think it could work and how I think it could go to shit, you can watch this video now.